Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, we can start a little early tonight, earlier than I had planned to. Things went well today. The kids playing and all, and they're pretty much sacked out. They're ready for bed, so I thought, well, let's go ahead and get this started early. All right, here we are on July the 1st already in the year of our Lord 2025. We get going here with some great information. Let me go ahead and click here on the Murtech on Rumble and take us over here to the video that we're watching right now. Let me go ahead and I already opened the description box. What I need to do here is I've got some comments here. Let me go ahead and pull those up real quick. This will take me just a second here, folks. But we've got some great information for you today. Information from Devory Darkins, from Jimmy Dore. All right, and my screen went blank here on me. All right, but let me get back over here and fill in these comments. Okay, Dr. Sanjay and Unclouded commented on my episode 1610. Debbie BS and LK Steiner commented on my extra 395A. Debbie BS commented on my extra 395B, and Debbie BS also commented on my extra 395C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I really enjoy reading your input, and I appreciate your support very much. Okay, now, as I said, we got Jimmy Dore, Devory Darkins, Doug in Exile, and Glenn Beck. So let's go ahead and get this going here. Let's start out with Jimmy Dore. COVID vaccine autism, I think is what he was trying to say, but he has to word his things carefully, otherwise YouTube will take him down, and he does the same videos on YouTube and Rumble. Anyway, COVID vaccine autism link remains undebunked, says RFK. Well, okay, let's take a listen here and see what Jimmy has to say.
Bobby Kennedy does it again. Listen to this. This just should make you angry.
What you would do if you wanted to find the answer, which is to compare outcomes in a fully vaccinated group to health outcomes in an unvaccinated group. And CDC did that study in 1999. They brought in a team of scientists under a Belgian researcher named Thomas Verstraeten, and they looked at the data. They looked at children who had received the hepatitis vaccine within the first 30 days of life, and compared those children to children who had received the vaccine later or not at all. And they found 135% elevated risk of autism among the vaccinated children. And it shocked them. They kept the study secret, and then they manipulated it through 5 different iterations to try to bury the link. And, we know how they did it. They got rid of all the older children, essentially, and just had younger children who were too young to be diagnosed. And they stratified the data, and they did a lot of other tricks. And all of those studies were the subject of that kind of trickery.
So I don't know if what I heard was correct. That's the Secretary of the Health and Human Services agency inside the United States government. He's the head of it that oversees the FDA and the CDC. And he's saying that there was a study in 1999 that showed over an 1,100% increase in autism from the hepatitis vaccine, which is the first vaccine they give a kid. And he's saying that they suppressed it. Let me make sure I heard it right, because I want to play it again. Let me make sure I heard it right.
What you would do if you wanted to find the answer, which is to compare outcomes in a fully vaccinated group to health outcomes in an unvaccinated group. And CDC did that study in 1999.
So if you wanted to see if there was a difference in outcomes of autism from kids who got the hepatitis vaccine and kids who didn't. That's what you would do. That's what he just said. And they did it. According to him, they did that study. Let's listen.
They brought in a team of scientists under a Belgian researcher named Thomas Verstraeten, and they looked at the data. They looked at children who had received the hepatitis vaccine within the first 30 days of life, and compared those children to children who had received the vaccine later or not at all. And they found an 1,135% elevated risk of autism among the vaccinated children. And it shocked them. They kept the study secret, and they manipulated it through 5 different iterations to try to bury the link. And, we know how they did it. They got rid of all the older children, essentially, and just had younger children who were too young to be diagnosed. And they stratified the data, and they did a lot of other tricks. And all of those studies were the subject of that kind of trickery.
Jesus Christ. You wouldn't call for regime change in another country if you heard they did this shit like this?
Yeah, like if another country did this to your kids, there'd be loud calls for regime change of that country. But just keep believing in the United States that they would never do this to your kids. I'm sure it'll work out. Just keep believing. I know people right now that have just had a baby, and I warned them. I sent them information. They're going to give your kid a hepatitis vaccine. And here's the data on this. And by the way, why would you need to give a hepatitis vaccine? You know how you contract hepatitis? You could through intravenous drug use or unsafe sex. Why would you give that to a baby? Why would that be the first one you give to a baby? That's my question.
This is a Satan country. That's why.
So I
said, great Satan, they used to call it, but we're not great. It's just Satan.
So I sent that information to my friend, who I guess didn't look at it, and he told me, yeah, they gave my kid the hepatitis. I said, didn't you? Why would you allow that? And his reasoning was this. Well, it's the first one they give them. That's what he said. But that's a verbatim what he said. He goes, well, it's the first one they give them. And I'm not going to
mind control. It's called mass mind control. You're describing it. We had the lady on mass mind control. We are not done with that. I believe Bobby is a good dude and wants to do it. He did everything Israel wanted, and we did everything Israel wanted. Now maybe we're going to get some fake reform. But I don't believe it's coming. I believe they're going to thwart it. They got a million ways to do it, and every single time they do it. They dodge the thing every time, going back to when they killed his dad and his uncle. And that's when we established Americans are dumb as shit, because everybody went, oh, just keep moving along, and America's good. They took over the country then completely, and it's never been fixed. And you're going to watch them poison you on purpose forever until people stop doing what your friend just said. That's the first one they give. It's really sickening.
It was heartbreaking for me to have that conversation. It was heartbreaking. You let your kid take a hepatitis vaccine without questioning it or looking into it. How do you not look into it? These are the same people who didn't look into COVID because they were told not to.
Does that make sense?
Your baby, they're going to give your baby a drug, a baby.
For hepatitis.
And you don't stop, you don't try to question that?
Well, I don't know where the baby goes at night, Jimmy. I don't know what this kid gets up to.
They're going to,
Look, I don't want my baby to be intravenous drug using and sexually active, but kids are going to do what they do. You got to give them the vaccine.
Well, hopefully the vaccine has a lot of aluminum in it, so your kids will forget what shit parents you turned out to be.
Yeah, tell me use nicotine to try to stave off the cancer.
Trust the science, Kurt.
Yeah, that's what Hitler said. All right.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, and this is absolutely amazing. And the thing is, he has the facts. He has the numbers. Okay? And people are fighting him on this. And Jimmy Dore, now he's a big-ass liberal. He is. Although his eyes opened up a little bit after he got his first COVID vaccine and his arm went numb. He went to the doctor. I've heard him tell this story. He went to the doctor the next day and said, what was in that shot? My arm is numb. My shoulder's killing me. It wasn't the shot. No, wait a minute. My arm wasn't hurting day before yesterday. I got the shot yesterday, and now I can't move my arm. And you're telling me it's not the shot? So he started doing some research, and I mean, he's still a big liberal, but he puts out the truth on stuff like this. Let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Jimmy Dore, the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Now, let me come back here to the main screen here. And as you can see, I made a live chat here. And by sharing this information through Rumble Studio, I can share this video on a lot of different platforms at once. I can share it on Rumble, of course. I can share it on Locals. I can share it on YouTube, on Twitch, and on X. And I mean, right when this video started, I got this live chat here from YouTube. This is from Hassan Piker Fan, and on YouTube. And his live chat was, Jimmy Dore is a doctor? No, Jimmy Dore's a doctor, and I'm not a doctor either. But I can quote facts and tell you things that I've heard from others that are pretty knowledgeable. I've heard doctors, well-established doctors, saying that the COVID vaccine is neither safe nor effective. I'm not a doctor, but I can say that based on information that other doctors have said. Even the mainstream media, even Pfizer's own people have said, no, the shot's not safe, nor is it effective. We didn't test for that. Okay? All right, there you have it. Okay, let me slide down here. Oops. Clicked the wrong thing. Let me get my screen back here. Okay, let me slide down here and go ahead and close this out again. And information from Devory Darkins. Trump DOJ just ended the largest fraud scheme. CNN faces backlash in fatal move. Well, that sounds like fun. Let's go ahead and see what Devory has to say.
In schemes alleged Department of largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in the Department of Justice's history, charging more than 320 people in schemes allegedly totaling more than $14 billion.
This enforcement action involves the seizure of cash, as well as luxury vehicles and properties, returning real money to American taxpayers and to our government healthcare program. As part of this takedown, we've identified and charged defendants operating from Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and other foreign countries. These individuals have infiltrated our healthcare system to steal American taxpayer dollars. As just one example, we dismantled a scheme involving a sophisticated operation run from Russia and Eastern Europe that strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies in the United States and submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare.
Well, the DOJ says 96 of those people charged were licensed medical professionals.
Okay, so let's get this straight. Number one, you have licensed medical professionals a part of this ridiculous scam. Number two, you have Democrats more obsessed with DOJ employees having access to personal data versus the real scammers that you just heard from the Justice Department. And number three, this is why we are partnered with today's sponsor, Chapter. We're talking about unbiased, independent Medicare advisors that only has one mission in life: to help you find the right plan that fits your needs. So it doesn't matter whether it's your parents or grandparents, or you are the person who's seeking to get on.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get it past this commercial here.
Department of Justice healthcare fraud takedown in history. The fact that it's even possible that you could have $15 billion to play in this endeavor is itself shameful. But that's how we're being attacked now. And it's not done by small-time operators. As you're hearing about and you will read about, these are organized syndicates who are designing to hurt America. And why do they hurt our healthcare system? Well, CMS is probably the largest target of all, responsible for about $1.7 trillion of disbursements. So it's a big target on our side. And they can pierce the veil of protection by just getting identifier numbers from our seniors or Medicaid recipients or others. Thus, use those tools, use you, the American people, to hurt us. What we're doing today is changing the paradigm, not just going after bad guys and putting them behind bars, but actually getting ahead of these schemes so the money never leaves our bank account. Because by the time we find out that these criminals have stolen and the money has left the building, it's already offshore somewhere in some foreign country's vaults where foreign leaders are rejoicing in the fact they took advantage of the American people.
And here's a visual graphic from the Department of Justice that really lays out the workflow that was involved in this $10 billion scheme. And it's just disheartening. Once again, you know, politically, they're so divisive, right? We live in this time where people are so tribal, they lose sight of what's actually happening in the world, right? You have people scamming Medicare for over $10 billion a year. And then I have two more points for you here. CMS successfully prevented the organization from receiving all but approximately $41 million of the approximately $4.45 billion that was scheduled to be paid by Medicare, meaning what? $4.45 billion worth of fraudulent payments were going to be paid by Medicare. Secondly, in another action involving foreign influence, charges were filed in the Northern District of Illinois in connection with $703 million scheme in which Medicare beneficiaries' identification numbers and other confidential health information were allegedly obtained through theft and deceptive marketing.
This case really underscores, Chris, is that U.S. government programs, particularly healthcare programs, are being targeted by international fraudsters, by transnational criminal groups using stolen identities, in part because it's pretty easy for them to do. And Dr. Mehmet Oz, who heads the agency that runs Medicare and Medicaid, today appeared to suggest that they were changing the way they do business. They're trying to implement artificial intelligence and other technology to stop these dollars from going out the door, to stop some of this fraud. The Justice Department also announced what it called a fraud data fusion center to try to put together more information on the identities of these clients, because it's been just too easy to date, Chris, for fraudsters to bill the United States government and make off with billions of dollars.
These criminals didn't just steal someone else's money. They stole from you. Every fraudulent claim, every fake billing, every kickback scheme represents money taken directly from the pockets of American taxpayers who fund these essential programs through their hard work and sacrifice. And when criminals defraud these programs, they're not just committing theft. They're driving up our national deficit and threatening the long-term viability of healthcare for seniors, disabled Americans, and our most vulnerable citizens.
So what's the bottom line? It doesn't matter if you're a senior citizen and you're looking to get Medicare, or you're someone like me who's not involved in that and I'm just online. It's easy to scam all of us at any point using technology. This is why you have to be paranoid, and you also have to exercise some common sense. For example, on my YouTube channel, below this video, you will probably have someone that will leave a comment asking you to call them at a particular number, claiming to be Devory Darkins. Now let's stop and really think for ourselves. Why would I put a comment below asking you to call me? I would never do that. The bottom line is this: they are finding ways to catch you off guard and to scam you. So be paranoid, be vigilant, think for yourself. If you're paranoid or confused, don't respond. I would rather not respond than to get scammed, if you know what I mean. Okay, so let's go to our next story that proves once again we're in disturbing times. This is breaking news. A mobile app has been launched that shows where ICE agents are at in your neighborhood. Here's CNN talking about it. Take a look.
The Trump administration steps up ICE raids and mass deportations. One tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. It's called ICE Block, and it's controversial to say the least. CNN's Claire Duffy is with us now. How does this work, Claire, and what are the legal implications?
Yeah, John, I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of immigrations and customs enforcement officers. So he says he does not want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether if they want. So you open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area, and then everybody who uses the platform within 5 miles of that sighting will get a push alert. This is a free iPhone app. It is anonymous. Aaron says he doesn't collect any user data. And what I think is really interesting about this in this moment is we've seen so many of the biggest leaders in tech supporting President Trump, but Aaron is sort of an example of the fact that there are people within the tech industry who are really resistant to Trump's policies. I asked him what he would say to those tech leaders who, for example, were at the inauguration. Here's what he told me. Take a listen.
I understand that you have shareholders to report to. I understand that you have employees that need their paychecks. But at what point do you say enough is enough?
Wouldn't that be aiding and abetting a criminal? I mean, if ICE is looking for someone and you're providing them a warning, you know, kind of like that judge that ushered out that one illegal alien that ICE was there to arrest. I believe she got into some trouble for that. Now, I don't know. I'm no lawyer, but I would think that there would be some backlash for that. If I was running the DOJ, there would be some, at least, questions asked of this person.
And John, I should say that ICE did not respond when I asked them about this platform and about Aaron's opposition to their activity.
All right, before we even respond to the story, her last comment, she said ICE did not respond. But then ICE puts up on X, CNN never reached out to ICE for comment. If they did, we would have provided this statement. And it says this, that CNN's promotion of an ICE spotting app is reckless and irresponsible. Advertising an app that basically paints a target on federal law enforcement officers backs is sickening. My officers and agents are already facing a 500% increase in assaults, and going on live television to announce an app that lets anyone zero in on their location is like inviting violence against them with a national megaphone. CNN is willfully endangering the lives of officers who put their lives on the line every day and enabling dangerous criminal aliens to evade U.S. law. Is this simply reckless journalism or overt activism? Is there a question? Now, just initially, before I show you what the spokesperson from DHS had to say about this, my thing is this. The guy claims, well, I don't want them to interfere with ICE operations. I don't want people to get violent. Yeah, but you're giving them the information they would need to get violent. So how does that make sense?
There's a new app that someone has come up with to spot ICE, basically giving people an alert that ICE is coming. I don't know exactly how the app worked, but I know that the Department of Homeland Security and the ICE director, Tim Lyons, is worried about this, concerned. And can you tell us your thoughts about this? Do you think that it is meant to at least give people a heads up so that they can get away from ICE, but also concern for the ICE men and women in uniform in addition to that?
Dana, absolutely. Our ICE enforcement officers are seeing a 500% increase in assaults against them. And a lot of this is because politicians like AOC, like Governor Tim Walz, like Gavin Newsom, demonize our ICE enforcement officers and give them free passes. And examples like these apps are absolutely obstructing justice. What our ICE enforcement officers are doing is enforcing the rule of law. If these rioters, these activists, and these politicians don't like the law, they should change it. Don't go after our ICE law enforcement. It's disgusting, it's wrong, and it's un-American.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. If they don't like the law, don't just break it. You know, I don't like some of the speed limit laws. Driving down here to Arkansas, you know, there were some places where I had to actually slow down, you know, like 55 miles an hour on the interstate. Well, I don't like that law. Is it okay if I just break it? Not if a cop's sitting there and he stops me and gives me a ticket. Yeah, I guess I could break the law, but I have to pay the price. Is there any difference? Let me know in the comments below. So if you don't like a law, it's okay to break it. You know, it's against the law to rob a bank. But hey, I needed money. So, oh, well, then that's okay. Give me a freaking break. Okay, as you can see here, this video does come from Devory Darkins. I'm 11 minutes into this 19-minute video. So if you want to watch more of this, the link is in the description box below. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right. Let's get back here to our description box. And next we have Doug in Exile. Justice Sotomayor stuns media, reveals agenda. Okay, this might be interesting. Let's see what old Doug in Exile has to say.
Let's check in on Sotomayor, who's going to need a therapist or a chiropractor to help get her out of her conniptions, get her out of traction. Here's Jonathan Turley. The end is nigh. Liberal justices predict chaos and demise of public education without mandatory LGBTQ material. This is a total tantrum on their part, hysterics. But this goes into the bigger political theory of, can a school force your kids to be indoctrinated on the public money? He titles it, he says, the end is nigh. That's according to liberals, which is, this is all good news. A lot of these articles I'm going to show you today are basically conclude that the liberals are done at the court level. They tried jacking with it and it's pushing back. The end is nigh. That seems to be the message this week from the three liberal justices at the Supreme Court. That's the three ladies, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor. Sotomayor being the slowest of the entire Supreme Court. When faced with the nightmarish prospect of parents being able to remove their children from mandatory classes on gay, lesbian, and transgender material. This doesn't matter what you think of gay, lesbian, and transgender. What matters is, should a parent be allowed to pull their kid from a school if they're being indoctrinated with pro-LGBTQ messages, even exposure at a young age before they're sexualized? They're being exposed to this stuff. It'd be no different than if someone was teaching my kid Islam at public school, or even Christianity at public school, or communism, which they're being regularly taught at public school. Now, the difference is I'm actually for teaching Christianity at public school. I believe it's actually true. But I could certainly see why other people would say, no, we don't want to put our kids in that. We should be able to pull them. Yes, you should be able to pull them. These are your tax dollars in our education hard at work. So this is what I mean by the left. They don't just want you to tolerate LGBTQ. Tolerance always means endorsement to them, forcing your kids to be indoctrinized by it, not just on every TV show or movie or video game, but in this case, in public school. They're supposed to be learning reading, writing, and arithmetic. The 3 R's. That's what your schools are for. And they're indoctrinating them on their liberal agenda of expanding sexual practice to endorse LGBTQ. The decision in Mahmoud, that's an interesting name. This is also about Muslims. This is one place where Christians and conservatives and Muslims are one for one on the same side of this. We do not want our kids indoctrinated with LGBTQ stuff. And so now you have a weird thing over on the left, which is pro-LGBTQ and pro-Islam. And which side will they pick when the LGBTQ is versus a bunch of Muslims? We already know this from in New York, too, with all the Palestinian protests against Israel being run with LGBTQ and trans flags. You know, there's not a mosque in New York that will perform a gay marriage because they're against the practice. So which one are they for? Are they helping Muslims out, or are they going to call them the H-ophobe word? The decision in Mahmoud versus Taylor was a roaring victory for parents in public schools, the Montgomery County, Maryland school system. And by the way, if this was a Christian that brought this up, it probably would never even have made it to the Supreme Court. Maryland school system fought to require the reading of 13 LGBTQ inclusive texts in the English and language arts curriculum for kids from that's preschool. They can't even read, and they're starting them on the rainbow books. Come on, people. This isn't even close. Through the 12th grade, that covers children just 5 to 11 years old. The children are required to read or listen to stories like Prince and Knight, boy-on-boy fantasies, ladies and gentlemen, about two male knights who marry each other. This didn't even happen in the Dark Ages, and they've invented this fantasy to teach them in your public schools. And Love, Violet, about two young girls falling in love. Another, Born Ready. Ooh, that's scary. I was born ready. Is this about babies being born ready? For what? The true story of a boy named Penelope. This is ridiculous. Nowadays you'll be lucky to have a boy named John anymore because there's a lot more boys being born named Muhammad. Discusses a biological girl who begins a transition to being a boy. Teachers were informed that this was mandatory reading, which must be assigned. So now if you're also a teacher of faith, you have to assign this stuff according to the Big Brother mothership Marxist state that opposes families. Why? Because Western civilization was built on Judeo-Christian traditional families. The left does not care about LGBTQ, okay? If you're an LGBTQ and you're a conservative, they want you destroyed. This is about politics. Same way with blacks. They use blacks. They'll use women. They'll use anyone they can. You defy that Marxist ideology and they're like, turn them into Soylent Green. And that families should not be allowed to opt out. That's the biggest thing of all. That is the most intolerant thing I've ever heard of. You will sit down, you will listen to the instructional movie, you will receive the two knights in love children's story. You will not take your children out. We have your children now. They're a bunch of villains. These are James Bond. This is what totalitarianism. This is what indoctrination is. This is what brainwashing is. By the way, this is also what misinformation is, and you guys are all for it. The guidelines for teachers made clear that students had to be corrected if they expressed errant or opposing views of gender. This is a pure ideology. A soft science has not been proven the sciences, and they push it as if it's as true as 2 + 2 is 4 in math. If a child questions how someone born a boy could become a girl, teachers were encouraged to correct the child and declare that comment is hurtful. And by the way, for the teachers to say that comment is hurtful is in and of itself hurtful to that child. These people do not care about hurtful comments. They will hurt everyone, including your children, demonizing them, calling them names, making them feel lesser than for simply being obedient to their parents or their family's creed, their religion's creed, or tradition. So this is formal indoctrination, and our Supreme Court decided 6-3, that is 6 against indoctrination and 3 for the public brainwashing. This is an establishment of religion. There should be an anti-establishment clause in the Constitution. That the government cannot establish a philosophy or a religion like this. Even if a student merely asks, what's transgender? Teachers are expected to say, when we're born, people make a guess about our gender and label us boy or girl based on our body parts. Sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. What about if they guess that you're a human being? What if they guess that you have 2 eyes? Maybe they're wrong. Can you just call it a guess that you're a human being? Teachers were specifically told to disrupt thinking or values opposing transgender views. Many families, this is going to, by the way, flock to the Republican Party. If you're a Democrat or a liberal out there, and you're against us, come to us. Come on over to the bad guys' side. Come to the dark side, my people. These people are nuts. These people want your children raised under a state value system that opposes what you might think. Many families sought to opt out of these lessons. By the way, this isn't even about LGBTQ. I'm going to explain why. There are people in my audience that are for LGBTQ values, but you're against indoctrination. So you could be for LGBTQ. I still think you're wrong on that, but I'm saying you could be for it, but totally against teaching it to someone else's 5-year-old. That's what this is about. Are you for teaching new esoteric teaching, divisive teaching, and forcing it on other people's 5-year-olds. And then when they try and pull them out, you're allowed to still lecture them, and you can give them an F, or we already know where this was going. They were going to throw parents in prison. If Kamala Harris won, you'd have your children taken away from a hateful, intolerant environment if you wanted to opt them out of this and did not support this teaching. That's how the left does everything. They're dictatorial totalitarians. The school allows, and if you don't believe me, just look up just this week, Obama and AOC have said there should be higher punishments for misinformation on the internet. This is just considered misinformation. If you say, I have a traditional view of marriage and a family and blah, 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 blah. They're like, that's misinformation. It's dangerous. It has to be fined. Something must be done. You see them escalate. That's not scare tactics. It's not a slippery slope. It's a fact of what they do. The school allows for such opt-outs for a variety of reasons, but the board ruled out withdrawals for these lessons. Ironically, it noted that so many families were upset and objecting that it would be burdensome to allow so many kids to withdraw. Guys, this is in Maryland. This isn't in Texas or Oklahoma. This is in liberal, flaming left, open-minded, tolerant of everything. So open-minded that your brain fell out and flopped out on the floor. And they had so many families upset and trying to opt their kids out that they said it would be burdensome to the school. The Montgomery County school system is one of the most diverse in the nation, although not diverse by religion, apparently. Christian, Muslim, other families objected to the mandatory program as undermining their religious and moral values, which we established this entire country on. Number one reason we fled Europe was freedom of religion. That's why the First Amendment is the First Amendment. It was the reason why we left. Freedom to express our religion, freedom of creed, freedom to put in between our ears whatever we wanted to roll around in our head. And a government has no place there. The majority on the Supreme Court ruled that, as with other opt-outs, Montgomery County must allow parents to withdraw their children from these lessons. That's it. You're allowed to be the class freak and pull your kids out, and everyone else makes fun of them. It's like when we used to do the Pledge of Allegiance and the Jehovah's Witnesses would pull their kids out when we all did the Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, look at the Jehovah's Witnesses that would not stand up and salute, and they were allowed to do it. And all of the kids look at them and go, oh, you don't get to read the drag queen stories at the public school level. It's okay. You raise your kids with family values, then they'll be fine. The response.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, but I mean, this is definitely good for the parents. It's good for humanity, okay? Good morals to allow parents to withdraw their children from this kind of bullshit. I mean, telling kids, well, when a person is born, sometimes they guess it's a boy, sometimes they guess it's a girl, sometimes they're wrong, and sometimes they're not. WTF. Seriously, folks. This is what's being mandated in schools to teach. Unbelievable. Okay, as you can see, this does come from Doug in Exile. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. And again, I'm like 12 and a half minutes into this 16-minute video. If you want to watch the rest of that, the link to this video is right here in the description box. But I want to move on and share some information from Glenn Beck. We're being played. This is the real threat to America. And there are a lot of threats to America, but I guess Glenn Beck thinks this is one of the major ones, so let's see what he has to say.
Talk to you about the enemy being clear. Crystal clear. But I'm not sure to everybody. I'm so sick and tired of us turning on each other. We saw it with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I like both men. Can you stop? Thankfully, they did. You're seeing it with Trump's bombing of Iran, where you were either a Jew-loving Zionist or a raging anti-Semite. Or if you're me, both. And then there was something that really caught me off guard. The people who are turning on Utah Senator Mike Lee over a housing proposal. He's had this housing proposal since 2022. But if you go on X, you're going to learn apparently Mike Lee, one of the most institution-loving conservatives I know, wants to sell off our national parks and our forests. You know, he was probably in Coeur d'Alene lighting the matches because he hates our forests so much. He wants to make sure you never get to hunt. All he wants to do is take away your fishing and your hunting rights and build cheap housing complexes, Amazon warehouses, and whatever China and BlackRock want. You know, I addressed this a few weeks ago, invited Mike to clarify where he stands because some of my family are very concerned. You can find the segments on my YouTube channel. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel, will you please? But since then, apparently, there's a crusade out to cancel Senator Lee. There have been a few major updates. So today, let me just take a look at just the facts here, where we stand on this right now. Over the weekend, Mike Lee decided to withdraw his federal land sale provision from the big, beautiful bill. He said, quote, while there has been a tremendous amount of misinformation and in some cases outright lies about my bill, many people brought forward sincere concerns. Because of the strict constraints of the budget reconciliation process, I was unable to secure clear, enforceable safeguards to guarantee these lands would never be sold, only to American families, not to China, not to BlackRock, and never to any foreign interests. Wow, what a shill for the globalists, right? Or maybe it's how our government should work. Members of Congress propose something, present it to the people, and then they listen to the community instead of just insisting we have to pass it to know what's in it. And then hear this kind of outcry for that. Here's one of the bigger issues here. We're speaking two different languages. A lot of criticism online is that Mike Lee wants to sell our public lands. Our public lands. To a lot of Americans, those lands are the lands we use for recreation and hiking and hunting and fishing and things like that. That's not what he wanted to sell. And he promised to make that much clearer in the revised bill. Now, let me remind you on the public lands. President Biden, under his administration, the federal government was ordered to conserve 30% of our lands and our waters by 2030. So apparently, our public lands are being gobbled up even more. That's another, I think, 6 percentage points. Another 6% of the entire land in the United States going to be seized by the federal government by 2030. And it falls directly in line with the UN's 30 by 30 plan. It's an initiative for governments to seize 30% of all land and water by 2030. Now, do you think the UN wants to give you more hunting and fishing land? Do you think they're all for that? Or do you think these radical environmentalists want to restrict your access in the name of fighting climate change? By the way, currently, the U.S. government owns 640 million acres of land. That's nearly a third of the country. So they've almost met that 30 by 30 goal, and they will meet it. And then what's next? The 50 by 50 UN goal. And in order to seize the rest of the land, there's the Sustains Act that passed. Do you know about this? I didn't hear any outcry about this. Where was the right on this one? It was enacted in 2023. It allows the government to receive private funds to advance conservation programs. So BlackRock, if they wanted to, could buy up the conservation lands. Does your property contribute to pollination, photosynthesis, the air we breathe, the water we drink? Well, as I exposed on a show back in September, the Sustains Act allows all of that to be monetized through the relationship of private investors like Bill Gates and the government. And it occurs without the landowner's permission. So they can take your land or tell you exactly what you want to do, what they want you to do on that land, what you cannot do on that land, because photosynthesis happens. Where were you? Where were you on that? This is the real seizing of American assets. This is the real seizing of American assets by the global corporations that you are all so afraid of. Mike Lee, oh my gosh, what about the Sustains Act? In his revised bill, which he's still working on, Lee has promised to, quote, remove all Forest Service land. Good. Significantly reduce the amount of BLM land in the bill. Good. Only land within 5 miles of population centers is eligible. Yeah, but when he gets that, then he'll build buildings there, and then he'll have another 5. And next thing you know, he'll be putting a cap on Old Faithful. He'll establish freedom zones to ensure these lands benefit American families, protect our farmers, ranchers, recreational users. But there's still a lot of claims online. Whatever. Charlie Kirk said it right. The Democrats, this is their war on single-family housing. Do you remember when we talked on the program about the globalist plan of 15-minute cities that all of BlackRock and everybody else is for? Remember when BlackRock came in and just started buying up whole neighborhoods, just priced every regular citizen out of the neighborhood? Why? Because it's part of the plan to pack the majority of humanity into easily controllable cities where everything you need is just 15 minutes away and you never need a car. But is that the American dream? Currently, rural land is getting so expensive, most Americans can't afford rural land. I know, I'm living in a place that has a population of 400 and I think it's 51. Might have had a baby, so maybe it's 452. And nobody can afford it. How is it possible you're living in the middle of nowhere with a population of 451 people and you can't afford a house? The elites don't need Mike Lee's proposal to take more of your land. They're already doing that. But here's my biggest issue. This is not about Mike Lee's proposal, okay? It's not. There is a much bigger issue. So I was talking about federal lands. I don't want to get off that. I want to change to instead what the real problem here is. What the real problem is. The real problem on the seizing of the federal lands is that we are so quick to turn on ourselves. We are so quick lately to turn on our allies. See, that's the issue isn't Mike Lee's proposal. It's how fast we turn on each other. If you believe Mike Lee's proposal didn't go far enough to safeguard our land from adversaries, great. That's fine. And you know what? You won. He's revamping that. He listened. The government listened. Good. But can you say that without calling him a traitorous shill for the elite? I mean, I don't know a traitorous shill for the elites that actually listens. Do you? Donald Trump Jr., he was against Mike Lee's plan. He thanked him over the weekend for pulling the proposal, saying, quote, Mike is a great friend, and we usually agree on almost everything, but this was a rare exemption of where we didn't. Hello? We don't need to hear people tear each other down. Who's our real enemy? Who's more dangerous? Can we go to, I don't have numbers on these, unfortunately. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go to cut 10, please, on whiter neighborhoods.
And realize there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed. we've seen time and again that this is a property tax system that is inequitable. It's one that actually Eric Adams ran on saying that he would change in the first 100 days. He's since sought to defend it and lost at every juncture in court.
And I understand you're saying we're simply describing the types of neighborhoods that would see these increase in taxes, and yet by invoking race, do you run the risk of potentially alienating key constituents?
I think I'm just naming things as they are. And ultimately, the thing that motivates me in this is to create a system of fairness. It is not to work backwards from a racial assessment of neighborhoods or our city. Rather, it's to ensure that we actually have an equal playing field. And right now, what we see with the property tax system is one that is overtaxing a number of New Yorkers and undertaxing others, and an inability of political will to resolve that.
So no plans to change that language on your website.
The focus here is to actually ensure a fair property tax system, and that the use of that language is just an assessment of the neighborhood.
Just want it to be fair. Just want to be fair. Play the next cut. This is Mamdani, by the way, the candidate in New York that looks like he might win to become the next mayor of New York. Next cut.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Wow, that is fantastic. We shouldn't have billionaires. So how would we get there? What would be his ultimate goal? Listen.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on, is dignity and taking on income inequality. What the purpose is about this entire project, it's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists. And we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of ceasing the means of production, where we do not have the same levels.
Can you just say that again for me? Whether it's the end goal of ceasing the means of production? Let me ask you a question. Which is more dangerous to our country and our heritage? Is it the senator, that controversial maybe, says 3% of federal land should be transferred back to the states? Or is it the politician standing at a podium declaring, not in some offhanded gaffe, that he has a real problem with capitalism, that he wants to tax white neighborhoods, that he wants to get rid of billionaires and seize the means of production? Now, for those who studied history, I don't need to tell you why your blood has suddenly run cold. Seize the means of production. That's not economic theory. That is a revolutionary war cry. It always has been. It's the heart of Lenin, of Marx, of Mao, of gulags, of 5-year plans, of Food Line. Total state control. It is the slogan whispered in the barracks of all of the camps, printed on the walls of the Khmer Rouge torture cells. That's not American. That's not a goal any of us should look for. But let's take down Elon Musk. Let's take down our FBI. Let's take down Mike Lee. Let's take down Tucker Carlson. Let's take down Ted Cruz, because we don't have enough enemies. Rightfully, somebody on this program asked around this time on Friday, Glenn, why did you have Steve Bannon on? This is why I had Steve Bannon on. We have enough enemies, don't we? Can we find people that we generally agree with, maybe 80%, even if that 20% is massive? Well, I'm going to be friends with anybody for the times I can be friends with, and then I'm going to have to say, I part with you here. You're going to have to go on your own way. But when you come back to this, I'm with you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. And he's absolutely right. I mean, these people, I don't understand how they get into office. I have a hard time believing that there are enough people in New York that think that this guy is the way to go. That they're going to vote him in as mayor. Now, you know, Glenn Beck, he lives in Texas. You would think, okay, what happens in New York? They have to live with it. But it's not just that. I mean, this is a situation where it's like a snowball. You get it started in someplace like New York and Los Angeles, and it grows. Unbelievable. All right. As you can see here, this video does come from Glenn Beck. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I'm at the 15-minute mark of this 22-minute video. If we come over here, you can see the link to this video is right here in the description box. All these videos, you have the links to them if you want to watch more of them, or I have the links to their channel right here. Doug in Exile, Glenn Beck, all of them. You can go directly to their channel, subscribe to their channel, watch their stuff. It's great information. Let's go ahead and see what we have here in the live chats. All right, Debbie BS. Let's go ahead and copy this into a comment so that the live chats will be permanent with this video, because they will go away, the live chats, once the video is finished. So there we go. That's how easy it is to make a comment. And folks, let me just do a quick refresh here. All right, close that out again. Okay, I've had 154 people watch this video. I've got 17 people watching right now, and I've got 5 thumbs up. So if I could get 12 of you to slide down here and give me a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. Okay, coming over here to Murtec.com, these videos that I shared with you come directly from the producers, but I did post these videos here at Murtec.com, where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos that I share directly from the producer's chairs. Here's the video from Doug in Exile. Here's the video from Devory Darkins. Here's the video from Glenn Beck that I shared with you. So, folks, if you want no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth, this is your one-stop shop here at Murtec.com. Although I only shared 4 of the videos that I have here on Murtec.com, I do have a daily news wrap-up that I'll start here in about a half an hour. I'm going to go ahead and update my playlist. So go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee or a donut, and meet me back here, about 10:30 Central Time, 11:30 Eastern Time, and we'll get this going. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for your time. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.